conservation commissions and other similar committees are so important. Your voice can make a difference, and certainly working together to create collective action, it's really the sky's the limit in terms of what we can achieve when we work together as a community. And can I just say this, that this is really the foundation of democracy in our country. Local governments are the closest to those it serves. You imbibe the spirit of your community, and it's your duty to improve its welfare. And that's why we are here today. So the good news is that it's not just good for the environment. I mean, much about what we'll talk about in this panel is good for saving money, for creating jobs, and driving economic development right here in our local communities. So the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, also known as CLCPA, or the Climate Act, which was passed in 2019, puts New York on a path to achieving 100% zero emissions electricity by 2040, including 70% renewable energy generation by 2030. There's lots of different goals on this slide. We have clean energy goals. We have goals to help those living in historically disadvantaged communities. I mean, the Climate Act requires the state to direct funding in a manner designed to achieve a goal for disadvantaged communities to receive 40% of the overall benefits of spending on clean energy and energy efficiency programs. So as state agencies, we are working to focus a lot of benefits in these areas in the coming years. So we have a lot of work to do. And communities and local governments are critical partners in this work. Again, the state can't do this on our own. We need all levels of government, the private sector, and the public to engage in a coordinated and sustained effort to achieve these goals. Now, I manage NYSERDA's Clean Energy Communities program, which provides a clear path forward for communities that want to benefit from the new clean energy economy. But they struggle with tight budgets and limited staff. We see across the state communities in every region, okay, so small and large, urban, rural, suburban, taking aggressive action on climate change. And since local governments can enact codes, they can regulate land use, they control infrastructure, they can have a very far-reaching impact on the community energy picture. And when local governments lead by example, clean energy and sustainability are more likely to be priorities in homes, businesses, and community institutions. So with guidance from NYSERDA, local governments are deploying community-scale solutions in ways that benefit everyone. Now, these activities are contributing directly to help meet the state's clean energy goals. And to date, it's actually not 641. It's 669 communities have completed more than 2,300 high-impact actions. That was actually updated in the last week. I mean, just to give you a sense as to the level of participation in this program, we jumped from 641 to 669 communities participating in the program in just the last week. So there's an intense amount of interest. Today, nearly 18 million New Yorkers, over 90% of the state's population, live in communities that are taking action through the Clean Energy Communities program. Actions that save energy, grow the economy, and move our society away from fossil fuels. All right, there's a total of 368 designated clean energy communities. And this is really a testament to the hard work and dedication of Conservation Commission members, elected officials, municipal staff, and volunteers across the state. Literally thousands of people are involved in these efforts. And Clean Energy Communities helps by providing grants and free technical assistance from a statewide network of coordinators, providing clear guidance on a path forward for what communities can do. It's helping to unlock the full potential of the high-impact actions that we promote through the program. And Carla, who you'll be hearing from in a few minutes, works on NYSERDA's behalf as a Clean Energy Community Coordinator. And we're joined by a number of the other coordinators in the room. So definitely welcome to you. They are a resource that you can take advantage of. Let's see. So These are the high-impact actions that communities can take to become a designated clean energy community and to earn grants and recognition through the program. Communities receive points for each action they complete, and then they can redeem these points for grants. And the most popular actions are energy code enforcement training, benchmarking, and the unified solar permit. Now, with this program, funding was set aside for small communities in each region of the state. So small communities is less than 40,000 population. And those who reach furthest get the largest grant amounts. Okay, so those who get the largest number of points get the largest grants. And this creates like a friendly competition among similar sized communities in each region. So as I said, there's money set aside for small communities in each region. So you're not competing against every other community in the state, just other similar communities in your region. Now, if we had offered a program without this kind of regional focus, maybe some would say, we have no chance of getting a grant through the program, so forget about it. But because we created this kind of regional competition, we're seeing communities who have no history of participation in clean energy programs come into the program. So that's very exciting. It's really an attainable program for communities, and over half of the communities in our program have no prior history of participation in clean energy programs. So it's pretty important. Grants are being used for projects that include converting streetlights to LEDs, installing solar on municipal buildings, purchase of electric vehicles, upgrading municipal facilities to be more energy efficient, and much, much more, including converting lawn equipment like mowers and blowers and weed whackers to electric, which is an important initiative that we like to support as well. So, and for those of you who are involved in city government, I know Long Beach, Beacon, Kingston, Newburgh, Peekskill, White Plains, Yonkers, Hudson, Oneonta, Schenectady, Saratoga Springs, Cortland, Elmira, Rochester, Buffalo, Jamestown, and others. These all have conservation commissions, and they're all designated clean energy communities. In fact, 3 out of every 4 cities in New York are participating in the CEC program. These cities represent more than 10 million New Yorkers. For instance, in Westchester County, the 3 largest cities, Yonkers, White Plains, and New Rochelle, have each earned the Clean Energy Communities designation. The city of Yonkers converted all its streetlights to LED. The city of White Plains used their CEC grant to convert 2,700 lights in 4 municipal parking garages to LED. City of New Rochelle, they adopted the New York Stretch Energy Code, and they established a community choice aggregation program, which is supplying 100% renewable energy to the majority of homes and small businesses in the city. You know, there are dozens of towns and villages that have conservation commissions and boards that have also earned the Clean Energy Community designation, or are also involved in climate smart communities. Like, for example, on Long Island, 11 of the 13 towns are designated clean energy communities. In Mid-Hudson, 25 towns, 20 villages are designated, including the program's top performer in terms of total points earned, a CEC superstar, the village of Hastings-on-Hudson. We will hear from the mayor, Armacost, in a few minutes. They have completed a remarkable 16 high-impact actions. I don't want to step on her remarks, but I do have to acknowledge her exceptional leadership, having adopted the New York Stretch Energy Code, 100% renewable CCA, a bunch of community campaigns, silver level certification under climate smart communities. So they're really making a tremendous impact. So thank you, Mayor. But to all the communities with conservation commissions that are designated clean energy communities, Croton-on-Hudson, Bedford, Irvington, Mamaroneck, New Paltz, Red Hook, Saugerties, Warwick, Bethel, Berne, Hardwick, Knox, New Lebanon, Niskayuna, Clifton Park, Lake George, Waterford, Boonville, Casanova, DeWitt, Dryden, Elbridge, Ithaca, Pompey, Trumansburg, Brighton, Canandaigua, Gates, Irondequoit, Penfield, Amherst, Aurora, Boston, Cheektowaga, Colden, Eden, Evans, Grand Island, Tonawanda, and Williamsville, just to name a few. You are really leading the way, and we are just so proud of you for everything that you have accomplished. It truly is an exceptional time to be involved in this work. Now, if I could just conclude with some practical, on-the-ground examples of what your communities have collectively accomplished through our program to date. 387,000 streetlights converted to LED. You know, it was only a few years ago that no streetlights had been converted to LED. Today, 387,000 streetlights. 634 electric vehicles deployed. 976 electric vehicle charging ports installed. More than 1,000 code officers and other municipal officials have completed the energy code enforcement training. 381 communities have adopted the New York State Unified Solar Permit to streamline the approvals process for small solar in your communities, and much, much more. Now, I'm happy to help clarify any issues or to answer any questions, but just thank you for your leadership, for your partnership at NYSAC. Please let me know if we can do anything more to support this work for you. Thank you very much. Turn it back to Bob.
And as I said earlier, we're going to hold the questions, the Q&A, till after the four panelists provide their presentations. Next, we're going to go to Dazzle Ekblad, who is going to talk to you about Climate Smart Community Program.
Great. Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Brad. Can everybody hear me okay? Are we good? All right. Excellent. Thank you, Brad. That was a great intro, and I appreciate putting it all in the context of the Climate Act. And so I'm going to talk about climate smart communities, and I'll share those slides in just a minute. But I did want to take a minute to say that today is my 7-year anniversary working on the Climate Smart Communities program. Like, today is the date that I started at DEC 7 years ago. So I'm really happy to be here with you all, and listening to Brad talk really reminded me how meaningful this work is, and how, you know, those of you who work on your local conservation advisory councils or at the county level, I am inspired by what you do, and it's part of what keeps me going. Working in climate change, as I'm sure many of you can relate to, is sometimes tough. The future sometimes looks really bleak, and there's so much about this world that is so beautiful and so precious to all of us. And it helps keep me going, knowing that you are all out there doing this good work, and that you're coming to an event like this today. So thank you. We need you. Keep up the good work. We all have a role to play in one way or another. So let me talk about the Climate Smart Communities program. Let me get my slides sharing here. Okay. All right, are those showing up all right?
Yep.
Okay. So actually, I want to be sure, are you guys seeing a split screen or a full screen of my slides?
The split screen. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was worried about. Give me 1 second. Let me change over. Thank you. And I appreciate your patience here. The hazards of having two screens sometimes creates problems. Okay, let's try this again. How is that? Is that better?
That's full.
Is it full screen now? And I'm sorry, I can't see you guys' video, so somebody's going to have to let me know, please. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Carla. All right, thank you for your patience. So one thing that I wanted to start with is just a quick reminder of the relationship between clean energy communities and climate smart communities. The programs are related and they work together, but this is one of the most kind of foundational misconceptions that happens is how do these programs work? And I still remember when Clean Energy Communities was first launched, and some of the municipalities in the Mid-Hudson actually came to me and said, what happened to climate smart communities? Is it going away? We really like it. So I feel like this is an important place to start, is to remember that in New York State, we have an abundance of resources to help communities and help local governments think about climate change, take action on climate change, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and also think about the adaptation side of climate change. But it sometimes can be confusing about these two programs. So both Climate Smart certification and Clean Energy Communities are focused on local government leadership. And as Brad said, Clean Energy Communities, if you look at the kind of center circle in this diagram, Clean Energy Communities often appeals to a broader swath of municipalities because it really has some very direct cost-saving energy actions at the core of it. But there's a kind of wider spread actions too, but it's clear that Clean Energy Communities, as implied by the name, is really focused on energy, whereas the Climate Smart Communities program is broader. It's a more of a comprehensive climate adaptation program that includes many actions and support and guidance and grants for adaptation, for helping your communities be better protected from extreme weather like extreme heat and flooding and things like that. So Climate Smart Community certification is also has many more actions. There's over 100 actions. So there's each municipality on its way to becoming certified can chart its own way. There's some common actions that every certified Climate Smart community has to do, but there's every municipality's pathway there is pretty unique. But the good news again here is that you have a local coordinator there who's there to help your municipality and guide you through this program. And if you're active in the Clean Energy Communities program and you decide you want to go for Climate Smart certification, you'll get points for those actions and vice versa. So here's the 10 pledge elements of the Climate Smart Communities program. So this is kind of the backbone, the 10 sort of principles that structure the program. And in order to participate in the program, the first step is to become registered, which means taking a pledge as a town board or a village council, a kind of formal municipal resolution that includes these 10 pledge elements. And as you can see here, this is another way of seeing how the Climate Smart Communities program is broad. And I know today's focus is on energy, and I highlighted those pledge elements that are focused on energy. And you will see it once you dig into this program, if you're interested later, and I'm afraid I don't have time today to kind of dig into some of the details, but as an introductory level piece of info, know that most of Pledge Element 3 actions that Pledge Elements focus on decreasing energy use, those are mostly municipal operations type actions, improving the energy efficiency of your wastewater treatment plant, for example. There's a whole set of guidance and recommendations there for how to improve the energy efficiency, mainly of government operations, which is a great place to start. That's where you can demonstrate leadership and kind of see the benefits of implementing these kinds of actions. Excuse me. But again, as you can see, the program includes a bunch of other activities that are more focused on building resilience to climate change and even public education and engagement type activities. So let me talk specifically just a little bit about the certification program. So the umbrella of Climate Smart Communities includes a lot of different initiatives, and I'll talk about the grants as well, but the Climate Smart Communities certification program is one that is probably the most interagency aspect of this program. We have a team of people from Department of Health, Department of Transportation, Department of State, a whole set of agency staff that help administer this program, that help review applications, and that help kind of guide its direction. So it's got a very interagency focus to it, and NYSERDA plays a major role. Brad is the chair of our energy work group under the Climate Smart Communities umbrella, but it really is becoming a certified Climate Smart community that will get you credit under NYSERDA's Clean Energy Communities program. So like the other parts of Climate Smart, the certification program is organized by those 10 pledge elements. There's a minimum kind of 220 points for the bronze level, and then 300 for silver. So there's a big jump between bronze and silver. So those 8 communities that we currently have that are silver level certified communities are very advanced and have done a lot of great work to document their activities. And the other thing to be aware of is there are these 100, 130 or so actions that are part of the certification program, and most likely that includes a lot of actions that your municipality has already done in the past and maybe already doing on a regular basis. The idea with the certification program is it's leadership recognition for those municipalities that are going above and beyond, that aren't just complying with the basic laws, but it's a way to acknowledge the leadership of different communities. But there are actions on there that are fairly common and that your community can get some certification points for. And so the idea is to not just do the actions and know that they have value unto themselves, but also get some recognition for those actions. And in my conversations with municipalities, that's one of the pieces they often struggle with is they do a lot of good work, but they don't have a way to advertise it. They don't have a way to kind of tell the world and tell their community, even their immediate residents, the good work that they're doing. So certification can play an important role in that. And the actions under the program are pretty varied, like I mentioned before, not only in terms of there's a focus on energy, on materials management, on adaptation, but also in terms of you can get points for actions that are just plans, completing a plan or doing an outreach and education event. And so it's more than just those kind of hard infrastructure improvements that might reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the nice thing about the certification program is if your municipality just has other priorities and isn't interested in assembling the documentation, which can be a lot that it takes to get certified, the action descriptions themselves are just valuable because they provide guidance, recommendations, examples to follow that can be really useful in doing this work. So again, I don't have time today to kind of show you the whole Climate Smart Communities portal website, but I wanted to offer this slide just as a reference point, and you will have a copy of these slides. I think that in fact they may already be available on some of the platforms that are here on this conference. But I wanted to just point out a couple of different pages because it's a big website that has a lot of really good information on it. So on the participating communities page, you can go to that page and look at the certification reports for every single community, all 80 communities that have been certified. And you can see a report that lists every single action they completed, how many points they earned, and look at the actual documentation. So it's a publicly available place to learn about the good work that your peers are doing. There's also a page called Getting Started, which is a great kind of, I almost think of it as a home page for municipalities who are working on this, because it has kind of step-by-step and enables you to kind of keep track of where you are in the process. And if you're at the very beginning, that's also the page where you would find the model resolution for passing the Climate Smart Communities Pledge. There's also a page that just has the list, I think it's about a dozen, maybe 13 mandatory and priority actions. And these actions we highlight because they're a great place to start. And the mandatory actions are really about forming your team. You know, as Brad said, there's a way in which these programs provide a great platform for democracy, for having people, volunteers, retired folks, teachers, you know, all sorts of different people participate in the direction that their municipality is going in and improve the quality of life in their communities. So the mandatory actions under Climate Smart Communities are focused on designating a coordinator, a Climate Smart Communities coordinator at the local level, and forming a task force. This is just a committee of people that includes representatives from the local government as well as from the community to start thinking about who you are as a community. What does your community care about? And what are those parts of the community that might be threatened by climate change? And what can you all do about it? So that mandatory and priority actions page is useful for remembering where to start and what are some assessments and inventories to gather information and have your decision making really be informed about what actions you take. And again, I've talked about this kind of long list of different certification actions. That actions page is really important. And there is a specific kind of PDF document at the top of that page that is the exact list of the certification actions under Climate Smart matched with the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities actions that kind of, we call it the crosswalk. It basically kind of links the equivalent actions in one program and the another, so you can sort of see directly how the two programs are aligned. And also, once you are signed up, once you're a registered Climate Smart community and you set up an account, you as a municipality have your own dashboard which was the place where you would add people who are on the Climate Smart Communities Task Force to participate in the certification process, help build your application, upload the documentation for each of the actions. And the other thing to keep in mind about this program is it does have a certain timeline to it, and that application cycle page has all the deadlines. There are 3 review periods every single year where we review the applications that come in from municipalities and see if they've achieved the requirements. I'm also excited to say that on our support page of the
Hey, Dean, we just shut down in the middle of Dazzle's presentation. The whole screen is frozen. I don't know, and I can't go into my even list to go to call a tech person. No, the window's open, but everything's frozen. No pictures are there. It says pending, and I keep getting a message saying paid. Okay, so okay, bye. Maybe it's an exit page, so I'm gonna close the tab. Okay, something wrong with this display. Reload. Okay. Maybe this happens to me. Okay, there goes my recording. Okay. No.
Oh, it's still loading?
Yeah. Okay.
No,
it's not there yet. Hello?
Management, municipal level, or at the community level. Projects are related to reducing vehicle miles traveled. Projects like putting in bike lanes or sidewalks to improve pedestrian access. And also we fund a lot of projects that are related to food scraps and improving organics management. So this is a yearly program generally. So the round that we're working on now, the awards will probably be announced in December, and then most likely we would open another round in May. So keep an eye out for those announcements. Okay, that's it for me. Here's a couple contact info emails for if you want to ask more questions about this program. But again, you'll have access to these slides for later. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dazzle. Now we're going to turn to Mayor Armacost, who will tell us how Hastings-on-Hudson accomplished becoming a silver certified climate smart community, and also the leading point community with regard to clean energy. So, Mayor Armacost.
Thank you so much, Bob, for having me and for the herding of cats to get us to this point. You've been an absolute hero, and I should say to everyone, I think it's probably fairly clear, but I am a massive fan of both of these programs, and I also want to extend thanks to Dazzle and to Brad for setting these programs up, moving them forward. They've created a lot of inspiration to us, and to Carla and her team for the hand-holding along the way. It's made a huge difference to have that kind of support. So as Bob said earlier, my job is to tell you a little bit about how we got to this point, and to maybe provide a little bit of advice to help others move forward and sort of get you on your way in the coming year. Just for those of you who don't know Hastings, we are a relatively small municipality. We have 8,500 people as per the last census. We're on the banks of the Hudson River, about 20 miles north of Manhattan. I tell everyone we're the center of the universe, which some other mayors might dispute, but it's a very lovely bucolic village on the side of the Hudson, and we have a lot of volunteers who care very much about sustainability and have been doing that work for many years, going back before I joined the community. And I became mayor in 2019, as Bob said, and my work, my day job, if you like, is focused on financing clean energy in the developing world. So I was really interested in thinking about how I could bring some of that global knowledge right here locally. And I was interested in programs that might sort of assist with that goal. And I'm particularly interested always as mayor in saving money, reducing costs, and improving energy efficiency and just efficiency generally. So we learned about the CEC and CSC programs, and it turned out we had in fact been members of this program for many years, but none of us really knew what they involved, and really the value that they provided. And so it took a little bit of research, and we put an intern on the job to kind of like uncover what was involved. And it was clear to me that he was completely overwhelmed. These were really quite complex programs. But what we realized was that the programs offered a way to systemize and document all the good work that had happened in the village to date by different boards and commissions. It also enabled us to benchmark ourselves against other municipalities. So that's back to, I think both Dazzle and Brad mentioned the friendly competition. It's quite a good inspiration to get things done. And it also provided inspiration for new policies and initiatives we hadn't yet considered in our municipality, and connected us to other municipalities to learn from them. And best of all, it flagged grant funding that would help us move our sustainability and energy agenda forward. So the reason to get involved was very clear to us. What we did, which was maybe a little bit different than the strategy of some other municipalities, is we set up a dedicated climate-smart community task force that included members of other boards and commissions. So we included the Conservation Commission, we included the Energy Task Force, we included the Parks and Rec Commission. They had liaison roles. And then what we did was we developed a strategy, and as kind of simple and obvious as that sounds, it was actually critical to develop a strategy. And that's really what got us to where we are today. And we realized we could go broad or we could go deep. And what I noticed was that the bigger municipalities or counties really had a going deep strategy. So it was maybe pursuing fewer actions, but gaining more points. And we knew we were tiny, and that was probably not going to work out so well for us. So we decided to go broad, which is do as many actions as we could that were going to bring in points. So lots of 2 points here, 4 points there, 6 points there, as opposed to 21 points for solar installation. A lot of those bigger actions also involved substantially more money. So our strategy had 3 prongs. None of this is rocket science. Any one of you can do it. So the first thing, and Dazzle talked about this, is documenting what had already been done. So what we did was we first looked at all our CEC actions, and Brad flashed a screen of those, and we documented them. We found we'd done a bunch of stuff, but we'd never submitted it to the CEC. And so we went through this kind of rush of submitting CEC actions, which gave us a very lovely letter from Brad and his team saying, congratulations, you've accomplished X, Y, Z. And we were able to use that acknowledgement as the submission for the CSC. So it was a classic case of sort of getting 2 things at the same time, which was wonderful. And then what we also did was we checked for other activities. We just looked at the list. It's very long. It gets updated periodically, so you have to sort of keep with the program and notice that new things have been added. But we, for example, realized we remediated a couple of brownfields. We had a farmer's market that everyone loved. We had a comprehensive plan. We had a hazard mitigation plan that the county had developed. And thank you, Peter McCart is currently re-updating. So hopefully that will count for people moving forward. And we had a complete streets policy and a bunch of other things. So there were a whole bunch of things that we realized we'd already done. In parallel, what we did was we decided to pursue some new actions. So we looked again at CEC actions that were going to give us points under that program because they counted for both programs. But what we did was we prioritized by looking at things that we thought were relatively uncontroversial and easy to accomplish without too much effort from volunteers or staff, and that could be done in a relatively short period of time. But we also looked at actions that would be hard work and time consuming, but which were going to be strategic for us as a municipality. So to give you an example of a couple of actions which were very easy to accomplish in a short period of time. LED traffic lights. We have 4 traffic lights in our village. I believe they changed them out to LEDs in a total of 2 hours. That gave us a couple of points. So there are actions like that are really easy to do, very quick. Another one which was very easy to sign up for was for the EPA Water Sense program, a Water Smart Community Water Sense program. The obligations under that are really providing information to the community. So there are a bunch of things that are relatively easy to do. There are some policies that are just uncontroversial. Everyone loves shade trees. Just pass a shade tree, a shade policy to encourage people and to kind of counteract the heat island effect in the municipality. More controversial or sort of strategic actions might be something like New York Stretch. We actually were the second municipality to pass that in New York State. So it wasn't, in fact, at that time, a CFC action. It became one subsequently. But that one was one which we felt was really strategic for our municipality. It was going to move us on our greenhouse gas reduction agenda quicker. Also, the CCA was an action. We had done that earlier. But those are very strategic actions for a municipality. And, of course, doing the basic requirements like finding a climate-smart communities, creating a task force and having a coordinator. The other thing that we did, and again, this is very basic, is setting ambitious goals. So we set our task force up in September 2019, and I told everyone the goal was to get bronze status in January. And in January, once we were told, or I guess in March, maybe Dazzle, you told us that we had achieved bronze, I said, okay, fine, we're going to do silver by June. And to do that, we had to delegate. So we needed to get, my idea was we were going to infiltrate every board and committee with this goal of addressing climate change. So everyone was involved. It wasn't just the Climate Smart Communities Task Force. It was the Conservation Commission. It was the Parks and Rec Commission. It was all these other commissions. And in the beginning, people thought I was out of my mind. There's no way we can do it in such a short period of time. But then, and there were some people who thought, okay, this is cool, this is ambitious. So we had the people who thought I was bonkers, the people who thought it was great. And by the time it looked like we could actually achieve silver, everyone was super excited and got on board. And everyone had a role. So we had a very effective delegation strategy. So just a few closing thoughts. Looking back, there are some things I wish we had done differently that you kind of only know in retrospect, which will hopefully help all of you. First, be very clear about the mandatory and priority actions for each stage. You need to make sure you understand what the rules are around that and do them. Dazzle is very lovely, but she's super hardcore, so you can't sort of mess about with the rules. Build in buffer points. So if you have, if you need to get 120 points, don't just go for 120 points. Go for at least 140. Because the other thing about Dazzle and her team is they will reject points where you've been too creative in your interpretation of the description. You need to be you need to follow it. There's a reason why it's written that way, and you really need to follow it, and you can't really argue with them about how it should be written differently. You can try, but believe me, you will not be successful. So you should just follow the rules, build in some buffer points. The other thing that we did was we did what I call tiered submissions, meaning that we submitted something in January, a few things got rejected. We submitted again in April, a few things got rejected, but we knew where we stood. So we knew when we arrived at the point in April where we might consider submitting in June for silver, we knew we only needed 30 points at that point. So the tiered submissions relatively close to one another help you move forward. So that's kind of a strategic point. The other thing is just watch out for changing and more stringent requirements. The team updates the requirements on a periodic basis. So if you are looking at a climate action plan that was accepted in 2016, the requirements may have become more stringent since that time. So definitely look at more recent ones. There are some old climate action plans that are really classic and fantastic ones. I'm thinking of Bradford, which we are constantly looking at as a very inspiring plan. But definitely look out for those more stringent requirements. And then the final point is really do some actions early on. There are some actions where if you do them early on, it will help you with other actions. And the one that I'm thinking about in particular is the Climate Resiliency Planning Report, where it's a kind of an analysis of all of your other plans and actions to sort of tell you where to really kind of provide a gap analysis. And I really wish I'd done that in the very beginning. We just did that recently when we re-upped for more points. And that one would have been a really good one, because I would have understood plans that even though I'd been mayor for 2 years and trustee for 10 years, I wasn't even aware we had some of those documents. So it's quite a really, really useful thing. So just in closing, the main challenges for the municipalities that I've spoken to is not having set a goal, having a problem in strategically choosing new actions, not really delegating roles and responsibilities, and not really kind of building in extra buffer actions. All of those are really easily solvable. And the good news from my perspective is, whether you know it or not, you probably have achieved bronze already. You just need to document it and sort of work it out. So I want to just, in closing, thank all of our volunteers. They've been amazing. Our Conservation Commission, our Parks and Rec Commission, our village manager. It really took a village to get to this point, and everyone played a really important role. So I hope this was helpful. Please feel free to reach out if anyone wants specific advice or have ideas. Maybe we can answer some of those in the Q&A section. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Armacost, in providing guidance on how to navigate the climate smart and clean energy programs. And now we'll move to our fourth panelist, Carla Castillo, who is going to share with us with regard to the various communities that she has worked with to create certification, how those other communities have obtained certification, and what we all need to do. Carla?
Thank you. First, I wanted to make sure that everyone was seeing a slide that says municipal energy efficiency.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Well, good morning. We're just about at afternoon. It is such a pleasure to be here today with our distinguished moderator, Bob, and our speakers. In addition to serving as Deputy Executive Director of the Hudson Valley Regional Council and a Mid-Hudson CEC Coordinator, I have also been a member of my local CAC since 2015, and I have chaired the formal CAC since 2016. So I feel like I have I wear many hats. I have a lot of different perspectives that experience that I can bring to the job that I do in supporting municipalities in the Mid-Hudson. And if I have learned one thing as a CEC coordinator supporting Mid-Hudson communities, it is that there is no one-size-fits-all in this important and transformational work that local governments and CACs are doing. As I reflected on the Village of Hastings-on-Hudson's success under Mayor Armacost's leadership, I did find some commonalities the village shares with some of the other clean energy and climate smart leaders in the region, and I look forward to sharing those with you. So HVRC is just one of the many regional organizations supporting local governments as they undertake actions in the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities Program and the New York State Climate Smart Communities Program. If your community is interested in exploring the CEC program's high-impact actions, please visit the CEC's Find a Coordinator webpage to find one who supports your region. As with HVRC, all of these regional organizations pride themselves in providing impartial, transparent, and informative technical support to local governments and their appointed volunteer committees. Hastings-on-Hudson is one of many amazing local governments diligently working to reduce energy use, energy costs, and greenhouse gases. The village's accomplishments support the goals of New York State's nation-leading Climate Act. and their impact speaks for themselves. As you can see on the Climate Smart Communities section of this slide on the left, the village became silver certified after completing 69 certification actions and earned 440 points. On the Clean Energy Community section of this, on the right-hand side, Hastings-on-Hudson has completed 16 high-impact actions and earned 5,700 points. Delving deeper revealed an important framework that not only demonstrates the value this local government places on its boards and committees, but also the value of bringing together a larger group of committed partners to this work. And the mayor has spoken quite in depth about it, and I'm glad because it connects so well with the intent of my presentation. So all of the energy and sustainability committees listed in the last bullet on the left side are integrated, as the mayor mentioned. The village's Climate Smart Communities Task Force is a 12-person committee that includes Board of Trustees liaison, 2 village staff members serving as Climate Smart Task Force coordinators, a Conservation Commission liaison, and an Energy Working Group liaison. Each of the other listed boards and committees have 2 liaisons consisting of a liaison and another with another committee and an elected official. This framework provides the village greater capacity and resilience, offering Hastings-on-Hudson more people who can support the village's initiatives in partnership with staff. And the mayor clearly spoke about that. Now, while the responsibility of enacting actions rests with the elected officials and staff, appointed volunteers have played a critical role in Hastings-on-Hudson's success. I then looked at the framework of some of the other Mid-Hudson leaders. Each of these 4 local governments that I've chosen to highlight also had frameworks that facilitated their success. For comparison, this table shows each community's population size, the number of CEC high-impact actions they have completed, and the points earned, the number of grant awards they have received, and total grant funds under the leadership round, the CEC leadership round, the project the communities propose to use their funds on, and their Climate Smart Community certification status. The last row shows the framework that facilitates these communities' clean energy and climate smart success. For example, the City of Kingston's Climate Smart Kingston Commission has 2 designated staff, county staff representation, state legislative representation, a common council liaison, and 4 staff from other departments in addition to appointed members. Kingston also is fortunate to have a full-time sustainability coordinator, Julie Noble, who chairs the commission and who is also supported by staff on her team. The city's Recreation and Tree Commission also have staff and elected official representation. Now, with the Village of Croton-on-Hudson, they also have a robust committee structure. The village's committee framework includes 2 elected official liaisons. The City of Beacon, I keep hearing this beeping. Is someone trying to reach me? No? Okay, good. The City of Beacon has 1 staff on each of their committees. Its CAC and Climate Smart Task Force is supported by a part-time sustainability coordinator who helps move actions forward within the local government. And the town of Bethel has 2 elected officials on its Climate Smart Task Force, which is called Sustainable Bethel. Sustainable Bethel credits its ability to move forward with most, if not all, of their recommendations to this cohesive framework that we see across all of these different leaders in these 2 programs. But I want to make sure that people, the rest of the CAC and Environment Committee members who are on here with us today, that they don't feel like this is a format that they absolutely need to follow, because one size does not fit all. And this is, of course, an integrated framework in these other communities, and it involves a strong and respectful partnership between elected officials, staff, and appointed volunteers, but it is not the only approach to success. There are many communities in the state where the CEC program and the Climate Smart Communities program success lies entirely with the municipal staff and elected officials. There are some communities that don't have a conservation board or a CAC or an environmental committee. So each location is unique to its political, cultural environment, and so what works in one community doesn't have to be exactly what works in another community. But I do hope, however, that these other models are worthy of consideration should your community be exploring other frameworks. So my presentation is short and sweet. I just wanted to highlight this connection and this framework that can be incredibly valuable for something, food for thought to consider. I want to thank you so much for your time. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with these panelists. And before passing the baton back to our fearless moderator for Q&A, I highly recommend viewing the morning welcome as County Executive Latimer and Assemblyman Otis gave wonderful remarks. And in fact, Assemblyman Otis really highlighted some of the questions that we as CAC members should think about in terms of how we want to move these environmental and climate goals forward in our community. Thank you so much.
Wait a second. Thank you so much, Carla, and thank you for all of the speakers so far. Before we go to Q&A, though, I would be remiss in not giving a shout out to Westchester County and to Peter McCart, because Westchester County, the Board of Legislators, just declared a climate crisis emergency declaration. And so we all know that we have a climate crisis, but Westchester County now passed a climate crisis emergency declaration. And so a shout out to Westchester County. Having said that, we will now move to Q&A. And so how this is going to work is we'll move from mic A to mic B to mic C to mic D. The first position is live. And so I see on mic A we have someone on position 1, so you can ask your question.
Thank you. And thank you for the shout out there, Bob.
Oh, it's Peter.
Yeah, that was great. I appreciate it. That they came out of our office, and I don't know if there are any Board of Legislators on here, but they've really been taking credit for it, and I don't really appreciate it. No, I'm just kidding. It's all good. We did it together, and it went through, obviously, we created the Climate Crisis Task Force a while back, about 3 years ago, and so this is just really cementing and bringing it home. But thank you very much. My question is to Brad and Dazzle. The barriers? I know there's a bunch of county people. I just been walking around. County people here. There used to be barriers for counties to get grants. Get grants and fulfill some of the requirements for the certification. Are those weakening? Are those lessening? And I kind of know the answer, but I really want everybody else to know as well. So if you could speak to that just a little bit, just to the county folk. I know this is a municipal thing, but there are county folk here.
Go for it, Brad.
Well, I do want to say that it is no secret to us. We've been in discussions with the New York State Association of Counties and counties themselves about some of the barriers that they've experienced in participating in the Clean Energy Communities program. Yeah, they have a different. The authority is different for counties than for cities, towns, and villages. Obviously, they don't have code authority, so they're not doing energy code enforcement training. They're not doing unified solar permit. They're not doing New York Stretch energy code. Also, they don't have authority to enroll folks into a CCA program. So there's a perception, and probably justifiably so, that they're disadvantaged in the CEC program. We are working on an update, which we hope to announce in the coming weeks and months, that will transform the program with respect to counties' ability to achieve high levels of points and grants through the program. So do keep an eye out. We are relying on counties to play a very important role, and it's really about their ability to convene local governments within their jurisdictions. While they may not have specific authority over, say, buildings, they do have a very unique relationship to the local governments within their jurisdiction. So we want to capitalize on that and try to see how we can work together to create like county-wide initiatives with respect to clean energy.
Great. Thanks, Brad. So I'll just add to that briefly. I will say that when the Climate Smart Community Certification Program was first launched in 2015, we heard a lot of concerns from county governments saying, whoa, it looks like a lot of these points are really related to zoning codes and things like that. And we, took a look at the program and paid attention to how it rolled out. And in the end, in my opinion, it isn't difficult for counties to become, the program itself involves a lot of documentation, and it's a high bar to become certified as a Climate Smart Community, bronze or silver for that matter. But we, in the end, realized that it was county governments could get Climate Smart certified, and of the 8 silver certified communities that we have, 4 of them are counties. So it also became clear that county governments under the Climate Smart program have the ability to get certified kind of without us making any major changes to the certification actions. And I guess I know we don't have time now, but I would be curious, Peter, or from others, to talk more about if there are perceived barriers for getting grants under the DEC's Climate Smart grants, because we certainly have awarded grants to county governments for under the DEC's Climate Smart grants program, and I'm not aware of any significant barriers there. If anything, we often find that county governments, because they have a little bit more planning capacity and kind of have staff that think in that way, have the ability to put together a pretty competitive grant application. But I think we do want, in general, to understand the needs of county governments and support their role in kind of being a convener. As Brad said, I think that the reality is in New York State, we have about 1,600 local governments. We have lots of little towns, little villages, and having 62 counties is kind of important and more manageable. And I think the county governments play a key role in possibly offering planning support or being able to kind of think more on a regional level, think more on a watershed level, and kind of help municipalities work together to kind of solve some of these challenges that absolutely cross those political boundaries. So I think county governments really do play a key role, and we aim to support them. I know Erie County, for example, has several Climate Smart grants with us, so they may be a good resource too if anybody's looking to talk to a county government that has lots of experience with our grants program. Thanks.
As I said, I will be rotating, so I don't see anyone right now at Mic B. So, and I don't see anyone at Mic C. Is there anyone at Mic D? I have this 20,000-foot overview, so I don't think.
Yes, there's Eileen is at Mic D. She needs to move to position number 1.
Eileen, you still have to step 1 further. You're on 2 now.
I think she might be at 1.
Well, Eileen, if you speak, well, if the panelists hear you, they'll respond.
You need to unmute yourself, or maybe I can unmute you.
Hi,
there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. My name is Eileen Torrey, and I am a trustee in the village of Williamsville, which is a small village within the town of Amherst, which belongs to Buffalo and Erie County. But I'm most impressed with what I've learned today, and I've only been a trustee for a year, but I've been on our environmental committee for many years. And thanks for clarifying the importance of the CEC. We are presently at the bronze level, and I want to thank Mayor Armacost for detailing how she got to the silver level. That was awesome. I also have a sister who actually lives in Hastings, and I have a sister who lives in Dobbs Ferry. So we share our ideas and our communications, but she was definitely most helpful. And my next goal is definitely to reach the silver level. We're getting there because we're just having a solar panels put on our DPW building within the next 6 months. But I'm excited, and thank you for sharing all this information. I'm going to make it a go within the village and pursue this so we become a silver, just like Hastings. Thank you.
Thank you. Next,
that was a thumbs up, Eileen.
Thank you.
Talented. Let us know if we can help. Okay.
I'd love to meet you someday. Thank you.
Sure, please reach out.
So
thank you.
Now we'll go back to mic A, and the person standing at mic 1.
Hello, everybody. I don't know if you can see me. It's a little dark in here. I'm on the Bronxville CSC task force, and I'm a Green Committee volunteer. We're just getting started. We just registered for Climate Smart. And one of the things we're puzzling about, and again, I'm new to this area. I came from Massachusetts. I've been very involved in government work in Massachusetts, but not in the climate area. And one of the things that seems to be confusing to our group is how to handle schools, because they don't seem to be directly under the municipalities. And on the examples of the task forces, I didn't see any school representatives. So if anybody can speak to that. Obviously in Bronxville, which is a tiny village, you know, one of the biggest public operations is the school.
I'd be happy to speak to that a little bit, Chris. Thank you. I think it's really important. In contrast, the state of New Jersey has a program that's called Sustainable Jersey, and actually has a certification program for schools. And we don't have anything like that in New York State. However, there are some programs that support climate work in schools, and I think it is an important distinction, and these kind of jurisdictional boundaries get a little bit tricky because there are, there's these 4 types of local governments, and it's true, they are separate entities from the schools, but especially if we go to rural areas in New York State, the schools are like community centers, they're really sort of a core piece of what brings the community together. So it's really important to acknowledge that. And so I think there's a couple different sort of strategies I would recommend. One is embracing the schools kind of as part of the community and find ways for the schools to partner with the municipality. Then there's some really inspiring examples of that. I'll actually find a link and put it in the chat. But the village of Homer in central New York, for example, the mayor did a tour of the high school with some students who went through a youth climate summit program, and I'll also send a link to that program. It's the Wild Center up in Tupper Lake, up in northern New York, has a youth climate summit program that's really extensive, and these students went through that program, brought some ideas back to their school, and there was a few students who got really excited about the idea of not just focusing on their school or things they could do in their family, but on focusing on the whole community. And so they talked to the mayor, they were aware of the Climate Smart Communities program, and they talked to him about projects they'd already done, and he was so impressed with the garden they put into the school and a couple different projects they were going that he said, you know what, we took the pledge years ago, but we're not doing anything. Why don't you lead up our task force? So those high school students are leading the task force and got the village to bronze certification level. So there's ways of partnering with students in schools that I think are really exciting and really powerful. When you get young people in front of elected officials talking about their concern about the future, it can really shift things and be really inspiring. So I think that's one direction you can go, and I encourage any teachers or any students or any schools who are in general who are interested in acting on climate change and finding really positive ways to respond to connect with the Wild Center's Youth Climate Program. The other potential is that NYPA, the New York State Power Authority, and Brad may have more information on this, but at one point they had what they called a program that was K through solar, K to solar, and they offer some support for schools putting solar on their buildings. And I do believe NYSERDA has some schools-focused programs that were recently announced as well, so I'll invite Brad to speak to those.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It is really important. I mean, there are actually more than 6,000 public and private schools in New York State, and they spend like roughly $1 billion on energy, and they emit like almost 6 million metric tons of carbon emissions. So they are an important part of our community that needs to be addressed. We have a current, at NYSERDA, we have a K through 12 schools initiative where it's really focused on helping schools lower energy use and utility bills. I will put a link to this in the chat. But there's actually a new program that was recently announced by Governor Hochul, new $59 million program coming in the spring of 2022. It's called the Clean Green Schools Initiative, and it will benefit more than 500 public and private schools in disadvantaged communities with clean energy and energy efficiency solutions that offer funding for services that can help schools evaluate, plan for, and facilitate energy reduction projects, clean energy projects, indoor air quality projects, as well as other kinds of initiatives. So thanks for your question.
So I trying to look, and I think we have, I think that was Mike A, so I think next is Mike B. And I think we have someone there.
Yes, it's just me, and I just wanted to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to show our sign that we got from Dazzle, and we are a climate smart community here in Westchester County, and very proud of this, so much so that I did want to show it off. And it's a beautiful sign. I mean, it's really well made, and I just we're in it. We're working towards our silver, working on our CEC. So I just wanted to thank Dazzle specifically.
That's great, Peter. Thank you. Yeah, and it's, I will say as a side note, it's been tough over the last, it's getting close to sort of 2 years now, when we've been constrained in our ability to kind of do public events, and we've, it's always kind of breaks my heart that we're just putting the signs in the mail, but we want to get them in the hands of these new certified communities. But we hope in the future we'll have more gatherings where we can come together in person and celebrate the accomplishment of all this.
Yeah, we really missed that press event. That was a bummer. But we're thinking we're going to have another one. So actually, when we put the sign up, we're going to put it up at Kinsico Dam. We have a big plaza there. We're going to put it there. And so we'll do something around that then, and maybe some people from DEC can come down. At least Carla. My best friend Carla.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
And I agree. It's a beautiful sign. I see that well, I thought I saw Bob.
Yep.
Attendee Bob possibly having a question, but I don't see it now. So does anyone, well, let me ask you.
Bob's there. Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, hi. Hi, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Fabulous presentations from everybody. Nikki, I'd love to see what you're doing in Hastings. So I'm in the town of Lewisboro on the Sustainability Committee here. And we're sort of I guess, we're somewhat suburban, we're somewhat rural, but I think I'd like to pose something that may address some climate justice issues and environmental justice communities, I should say, and some of the rural communities that may not have the resources to get things going. It's kind of a chicken and egg thing as I look at these programs, and just kind of stepping back a little bit. So it seems that between the clean energy communities and climate smart communities, the more grants you get, the more resources you have to do that much more. But I think there are a number of communities around the state, whether for whatever their priorities need to be, have difficulty getting staff or maybe some consulting help to get these programs started. And I'm wondering if there's any thought, either at the DEC or NYSERDA, to providing some sort of kickstart funding to communities so that they can get some staff, full-time, part-time, consulting, etc., to get these things going so that they can do that much more. And just, leave it at that and just put that thought out there.
I'll start, Brad, and then maybe you can follow me. Thank you, Bob. It is a concern, and I think it's very timely too. And I think this country has a pretty shameful history of mistreating certain communities, certainly people of color, and having some really tough divisions between different parts of society. And I think that as part of the pandemic and this kind of just recent activism and reckoning with police brutality and racism, that I'm seeing changes within the agencies. Our discussions are different than they were a couple of years ago, and that's really exciting to me. There's always been a concern to kind of provide capacity building support, but it's become more overt and more deliberate, I would say, in my experience. And I think we're seeing things like the DEC has an Office of Environmental Justice. That office is growing, which is really exciting. And I think there's more and more agencies that are looking to that office to kind of learn from it and learn how to support those communities. But I think it's a challenge, and I will say that the DEC's Climate Smart Communities Grants Program is a competitive program. So there's this way in which we keep rewarding the high performers, and there's a limited pot of money. It's pretty substantial. It's almost $10 million a year each time we've run these programs. But still, when you look at the scale of New York State and the way that we're aiming to really transform the economy in the next 30, 50 years, we need more support. And I think I see us moving in that direction. I wish it was faster. And I think that the Climate Act and the focus on disadvantaged communities, and there's certain provisions within the Climate Act that are really seeking to, as we transform our economy, also kind of right the wrongs of the past as much as we can. And there's a very clear provision in the Climate Act, for example, that the benefits of New York State's energy-related programs, at least 35 to 40% of those benefits go to disadvantaged communities, and there's a whole process kind of defining that's underway right now of what is a disadvantaged community and what does that mean. So I think there's progress being made. One of the really kind of concrete things that I can point to is that hopefully within the next month or two, DEC will be announcing additional technical assistance, regional coordinators that will work alongside the NYSERDA energy coordinators, clean energy communities coordinators. And so I think that kind of technical assistance is really helpful because it's free, it's available to any community for it, and it's a way of kind of helping those communities learn, for example, grant writing skills and be able to compete more effectively for those monies. And we're trying to work in more ways for communities to participate in our funding programs that struggle with grant writing and with just providing the information that's needed and navigating what can be really tough, old computer systems, old software that's often hard to navigate. So one small change that we made under our ZEV program under the most recent round is communities with an MHI, a median household income that's below a certain level, can get a grant to install an electric vehicle charging station with no match. We're trying to work in things like that. The Climate Smart grants also have additional points for projects that are located in or near environmental justice areas, and also points for communities that are in a category that we call financial hardship, which have a lower MHI. So there's ways that we're working towards it. There's an equity work group under the Climate Smart Communities governance structure that's also looking at ways of incorporating climate justice in a more overt way into the kind of actions that are under the certification program. So those are a few things that come to mind, but I think it's something that that progress is being made slowly on right now, and I see it as a part of conversations in a more direct way than has been since I've been involved. But I think Brad can also offer some thoughts on this.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Good to see you. There's kind of two things. One is local governments throughout New York State have limited staff resources and tight budgets. That's really like understanding that is a driving force behind our program, and that's why we've established the statewide coordinator network, and really these 30 to 40 people that are out there in the state working on our behalf really can serve a lot of important, what would otherwise be staff time. They can help provide support, but also tools and resources, things like RFP templates or template legislation. Instead of having to come up with this stuff from scratch, we can usually connect you with the templates to make that process go a lot quicker. So that's an important point. I will mention on disadvantaged communities, 21% of the 1,600 local governments contain a disadvantaged community according to the interim definition, okay, that we use. So 21% of the 1,600 local governments in New York State contain a disadvantaged community. Since we launched the leadership round of clean energy communities earlier this year, we've given away like 204 different grants, okay? 48% of that money is going to communities that contain a disadvantaged community. Now, that's not to say that they're going to spend all those dollars necessarily in the disadvantaged community neighborhood, but it is a good indicator that we are getting the resources out to the communities that need it the most. And we do have incentive grants, bonus grants as in our program. If you use your money in the disadvantaged community neighborhood, we give you $10,000 extra. So we also focus a lot of targeted outreach at communities that contain disadvantaged communities. We have things like community solar campaigns that could do solar for all, which are really disadvantaged community focused, LMI focused. So there's a lot of ways in which we're trying to do sort of be more responsive to the needs that you've brought up. Certainly much more work to do. But it is something that we are more focused on than ever. So thank you for your question.
Sure. Applaud the answers, and I thank you both for shedding some light on where both these agencies and authority are going in the state. It's very, very helpful. Just and I don't want to dominate the mic here, but just a quick viewpoint of what we have here in Westchester County. It's a pretty clear divide. We see communities, that have lots of money getting lots more in grants, and then we see some of the urban areas, for example, more diverse areas by population not getting going on these programs. And so I'm very pleased to hear that this is on the on the screen in front of you, and that you're addressing this. Thanks.
Bob, can I just add one point for I guess moderator Bob to answer participant Bob? Just for you to know, Bob, we actually only started getting grants after we got to bronze status. So we got to bronze purely by documenting stuff. We actually were fairly rubbish at getting grants up until that point. And then we started to realize there was a strategy and that we could put things together in a way that was going to get us grants. But if you want to have a sort of offline conversation about the sort of high drama days before we got our act together on grants, I'm really happy to have that conversation with you. Sure. Obviously, we're not a disadvantaged community, so we have a set of advantages, but that didn't mean we were doing things in a smart way, before we kind of understood. There's a process that makes it easier to win the grants, so to speak, that you sort of learn over time.
Right. And Nikki, I appreciate that. And we became a bronze community right before the pandemic. And one of the reasons I thought we would become a bronze community is because I thought that would open up the grant channels. But again, it's not that the grants aren't available. It's just that with the pandemic, it seems like everything kind of slowed down from what the community would do. But I will take you up on that, and I'd love to understand exactly how the grant process works, because it would be great if communities have someone on staff who is a grant person who understands the process. And
one thing I want to say is that Dazzle really does, and Brad, both of their teams, send us information about grants all the time. So none of us can say they're not telling us. They are telling us. It's just that it's like you're in a Byzantine court and you go in through the first door and you end up in the swimming pool. You know what I mean? You sort of navigating it is not that simple. And so we almost need a course on how to, I could probably now tell you what I wish I had done, 2 years ago, but 2 years ago, I couldn't have told you the way to go. So it's, some of it is sort of in retrospect. When you've arrived at a certain point, you realize how to do it. But I'm super happy to at least tell you what we did. And the other thing was we have a great grant writer who is not a member of staff, but who is somebody we hire for specific grants. But you have to do that strategically. And then there were just some low-hanging fruit grants none of us knew about, like the ZEV grants. As soon as I learned about the ZEV grants, believe me, I was applying every 5 minutes to them. And we sort of, slight exaggeration, but we started to rack up some, those are not grants so much as rebates. So you have to have bought the EV to get the ZEV rebate. But, I think it's a great conversation because there's a lot to learn there for all of us.
Yeah, Nikki, I think the great thing about Hastings-on-Hudson is that the leadership is coming from the top down, as opposed to banging on the door of town officials who have, obviously, some have the same priorities, but not all do. So it's great that your board and you are so green, and so obviously it helps, your conservation board and sustainability committees. And I think it would be great if all communities, and obviously this goes into the budget of what communities have, if they had someone on staff who was excellent in grant writing, and also if they had some director of sustainability. Like I think Julie Noble is up in Kingston, where there's a position, it's not just the conservation board or the energy action committee knocking on the door. There is someone there who has an open door who is basically helping you fight the fight. But who knows? But yes, I think I will definitely take you up on that. And it's not just just seeing what you've done. What Hastings-on-Hudson have, and when I see, for example, there's someone from Hastings on the NIAC planning committee, and you see the energy, and you see, from that person how green Hastings is. So yes, you are the star, the shining example on the hill. And
so listen, Bob, one thing I want to say about that is any moment you have as the shining star is a flicker in the eons of the universe. So we're enjoying our moment now, but the most exciting thing will be when someone comes to challenge that, because that means we all collectively will be moving in the direction that we need to go. So I'm happy if we're leading the way, but believe me, Dazzle goes out of her mind, because I make the team re-up on a regular basis, because I really believe it's something you have to be doing every day. You can't just tick off climate change and move on to the next issue. It's going to be something we're dealing with for the rest of our lives. So I think I really just want to give kudos to the team for setting up a great program, and to you for giving us the space to tell our own story. But believe me, we're not sitting on our laurels at all on this one.
And I 100% agree with you. Are there any other people in the audience who have questions for the
There is another question. Eileen is at Mike D.
Okay, Eileen?
No, I don't have a question.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Anyone? Going once, going twice. Okay, so first of all, I told you at the outset that this was going to be a very impressive panel, and that you were in for a real treat. And I don't think I oversold it, and obviously I don't think anyone is disappointed in this panel. It was a tremendous presentation. So basically, I want to thank the speakers, the panelists. I want to thank the audience for participating, whether you asked a question or not, being here. And if, hopefully all the panels today and tomorrow are this engaging, because then we put on a tremendous conference. And again, just like Nikki said, it's not because I want to say we put on a tremendous conference, but to the extent you can spread the word and have more people realize that the planet is indeed in jeopardy, and we have to everyone. So and this is another thing I'm doing tomorrow on the CLCPA and how it affects communities, and that's tomorrow morning on a panel. But again, the state can only mandate whatever they mandate. 70% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by X date. 85%. Carbon recapture. But the bottom line is the state doesn't do it. It has to be the communities, and it has to be each of us, whether it's changing from a furnace to geothermal, or whether it's just recycling and composting, or just being active in our communities to say, hey, wait a second, we're not as green as we can be. And I think, to the extent that people hear this panel and are engaged by it and want to go back to their town and say, let's do something, I think then it's all worthwhile. So thank you, panelists, and thank you, attendees, for a tremendous hour and change discussion.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Bob. Really great job.
Enjoy the
Thank
rest
you.
of the conference.